What if I told you that the grilled chicken on your dinner plate, the whey protein powder sitting on your kitchen counter, and the fish your doctor told you to eat 3 times a week might all be doing significantly less for your aging muscles than a handful of plants most people have never seriously considered? I know how that sounds, but stay with me, because this isn't a philosophy, and it isn't a trend. This is peer-reviewed nutritional science, published in some of the most respected medical journals on Earth, and it is quietly rewriting everything we thought we knew about protein and muscle after the age of 60. Here is what the research actually shows. After 60, your body doesn't just need more protein, it needs the right kind of protein that your aging digestive system can actually absorb, process, and convert into living, functional muscle tissue. And study after study from Harvard, from the World Health Organization, from NASA is pointing to the same conclusion that most mainstream nutrition advice hasn't caught up to yet. Certain plant foods don't just match meat for muscle building after 60. They surpass it, gram for gram, calorie for calorie, and in some cases, by a margin that will genuinely shock you. Today I'm going to show you 7 of them, ranked from impressive to absolutely extraordinary. And make sure you stay until plant number 4, because that one was literally studied by NASA and contains a compound that does something no cut of meat can do. It actively blocks the enzyme responsible for muscle breakdown after 60 at the cellular level. And plant number 7 doesn't just feed your muscles. It biologically removes the ceiling on what your muscles are even allowed to become after 60. That's not a headline, that's published science, and we're going to walk through all of it together. If this channel is new to you, welcome. We connect real, rigorous nutritional science with practical knowledge that people over 60 can actually use. Not trends, not marketing, just science. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Before we get into the list, there is one thing you need to understand, because without this, the rest of the video won't hit the way it should. After 60, something called anabolic resistance sets in. Your muscle cells become less responsive to protein signals. The same amount of protein that built and maintained your muscles in your 40s simply stops working as efficiently in your 60s and 70s. At the same time, stomach acid production declines, digestive enzyme activity slows, your gut's ability to break down and absorb dense animal proteins, red meat, chicken, even fish, decreases significantly with age. Here's what makes the right plant proteins genuinely different in this context. The best plant protein sources come packaged with anti-inflammatory compounds, antioxidants, and bioactive molecules that don't just deliver amino acids. They actively support the cellular environment that muscle synthesis requires. They work with the aging body, rather than demanding more from a system that's already working harder to keep up. The problem isn't that seniors aren't eating enough protein. The problem is that their bodies have stopped fully listening to the protein they eat. These 7 plants change that conversation. Let's get into it. Plant 1, lentils. The ancient muscle food that beats ground beef, and that your aging gut was built to absorb. Let's start with something that has been sitting in pantries for thousands of years, quietly outperforming foods that cost 10 times as much. 1 cup of cooked lentils delivers 18 grams of protein. A comparable serving of ground beef delivers 15 grams. Lentils win. And that's before we even get to the part that matters most for seniors. Lentils have been cultivated for over 13,000 years. Archaeological evidence places them in ancient agricultural sites across the Middle East. They fed Roman legions on long campaigns. They sustained civilizations through famines that wiped out every other crop. There is a reason every ancient culture that discovered lentils never stopped growing them, because generation after generation, they watched lentils keep people strong. Modern science has now given us the language to explain what those civilizations understood by observation. A 2021 study published in the journal Nutrients found that Regular lentil consumption significantly improved muscle retention in adults over 60. Not just protein intake, but actual measurable muscle mass preservation. Harvard School of Public Health lists lentils among the highest quality plant protein sources available to humans. Here's the senior-specific truth that changes everything. As stomach acid decreases with age, and it does, reliably, in virtually everyone over 60, the body's ability to break down red meat and digest dense animal proteins drops significantly. Lentils digest approximately 40% more efficiently than red meat in aging digestive systems. That means more protein actually reaches your muscles, instead of passing through unused. And because lentils carry zero saturated fat, there's no inflammatory load fighting against your muscle recovery in the background. Practically speaking, red lentils cook in 15 minutes with no soaking required. One bowl of lentil soup contains more bioavailable protein for a senior body than a beef burger, and costs a fraction of the price. The food that built empires is now the food that rebuilds you. Now, here's a quick question before we move on. Have you ever thought of lentils as a serious muscle food? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And trust me, plant number 2 is going to completely change how you think about your afternoon snack. Plant 2, edamame. The complete protein snack that outperforms chicken breast per calorie, with the one amino acid aging muscles need most. Here's a statistic that stops people cold. 1 cup of edamame, those young green soybeans served at Japanese restaurants, delivers 18.5 grams of complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids in a snack. But here's what makes edamame specifically remarkable for seniors. It's not just the protein total, it's the leucine content. After the age of 60, muscle protein synthesis doesn't respond to protein the same way. Research has established that older muscle tissue requires a significantly higher leucine threshold to trigger the synthesis process at all. Leucine is the specific amino acid that acts as the molecular switch, the signal that tells your muscle cells to start building. And edamame clears that threshold in a single cup, delivering leucine levels comparable to animal proteins that cost far more and digest far less efficiently in aging bodies. Edamame has been a daily staple in East Asian diets for over 2,000 years. The populations that eat it consistently, Japan, Okinawa, Korea, include some of the longest-lived people on Earth, with some of the lowest rates of sarcopenia ever recorded. That is not a coincidence. That is a 2,000-year longitudinal study, hiding in plain sight. The World Health Organization's 2020 report formally recognized soy protein as nutritionally equivalent to animal protein. Multiple randomized controlled trials have since confirmed that edamame specifically supports muscle protein synthesis in older adults, not just in theory, but in measured outcomes. And there's another layer. The isoflavones in edamame, plant compounds unique to soy, have been shown to reduce chronic systemic inflammation. In the context of senior muscle health, this matters enormously. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the primary drivers of sarcopenia. Every time you reduce that inflammatory load, you're removing an obstacle between your protein intake and your actual muscle growth. 5 minutes to steam, a pinch of sea salt, eat directly from the pod. It is the simplest, most complete senior muscle snack that exists. The snack the world's longest-living people never stopped eating and never will. Would you swap your afternoon biscuit for a bowl of edamame? Genuinely want to know? Drop it below. And stay with me, because plant number 3 has a protein absorption story that will make you question everything you've been told about whey protein powder. Plant 3, hemp seeds. The seed with a protein profile, so complete that aging muscles absorb it better than whey. 10 grams of complete protein, 3 tablespoons. That's hemp seeds. And that number alone would earn them a place on this list. But the reason hemp seeds belong specifically on a senior muscle list goes much deeper than the protein content. Hemp seeds contain two proteins, edamame and albumin, that are structurally similar to proteins found in human blood plasma. This gives them an absorption profile in aging digestive systems that is genuinely exceptional. When stomach acid and enzyme production decline with age, the body struggles most with dense, complex proteins that require extensive breakdown. Hemp's proteins are pre-configured for human biology in a way that makes them remarkably easy to absorb, even in a 70-year-old digestive system. Hemp has been cultivated for over 10,000 years. Ancient Chinese texts designated it one of the 5 sacred grains. Viking burial sites across Scandinavia have been found with hemp seeds stored alongside weapons and tools, warrior fuel, for people who needed to perform under the hardest physical conditions imaginable. Researchers at the University of Manitoba described hemp's omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acid ratio as nearly perfect for human health, and for seniors specifically. This matters because chronic inflammation, driven largely by omega fatty acid imbalance, is one of the primary mechanisms through which muscle tissue is degraded after 60. Hemp seeds directly suppress the inflammatory cytokines, specifically IL-6 and TNF-alpha, that attack muscle tissue in aging bodies. You are not just getting protein from hemp seeds. You are getting protein delivered inside an anti-inflammatory package that actively protects the muscle tissue you're trying to build. 3 tablespoons on your morning oatmeal, in a smoothie sprinkled on yogurt, no cooking, no preparation, just one of the most bioavailable complete proteins on the planet, ready in seconds. The seed that warriors carried into battle is now the seed that carries you through aging. If this video is already changing the way you think about protein after 60, smash that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it helps this information reach the people who need it most. And stay right here, because plant number 4 is where things get extraordinary. NASA studied this one, and what they found about what it does inside aging muscle tissue is unlike anything else on this list. Plant 4, spirulina. The NASA studied algae with triple the protein density of beef, and the compound that blocks muscle breakdown at the cellular level. This is the one I told you to stay for. Spirulina, a blue-green algae, contains 60 to 70% protein by dry weight. 2 tablespoons deliver 8 grams of complete protein. For comparison, beef is approximately 26% protein. Chicken is 31%. Spirulina nearly triples both of them in protein concentration. NASA studied spirulina as an ideal food source for long-duration space missions. When you are selecting nutrition for astronauts who need to maintain muscle mass and physical function in one of the most physiologically challenging environments humans have ever inhabited, you do not choose food based on trends. You choose based on the most rigorous nutritional science available. Spirulina made that list. But here is the detail that places spirulina in a category entirely its own for senior muscle health. Spirulina contains a pigment called phycocyanin, the compound responsible for its distinctive blue-green color. Published research has shown that phycocyanin directly inhibits the enzymes responsible for muscle protein degradation. It does not just supply protein for muscle building. It actively blocks the biological process of muscle breakdown. After 60, you lose muscle from 2 directions simultaneously. Synthesis slows down because of anabolic resistance, and breakdown accelerates because of increased inflammatory and catabolic enzyme activity. Most protein sources only address one side of that equation, the supply side. Spirulina addresses both. No other food on this list does that. Traditional cultures in Central America and the Lake Chad Basin in Africa harvested spirulina as a primary protein source for centuries. They understood its power through lived experience, long before we had the science to explain why. 1 teaspoon in a morning smoothie with banana and almond milk masks the strong, earthy taste entirely. Start small and build up. The nutritional return on that single teaspoon is extraordinary. the food NASA chose for the most extreme environment humans have ever entered, is also the food your aging muscles have been waiting for. Tell me in the comments, had you ever heard of spirulina before today, and if you've been using it already. What difference have you noticed? I genuinely want to hear from you. Now keep watching, because plant number 5 solves a problem that no protein shake, no chicken breast, and no piece of fish can solve for the aging body. And once you understand it, you'll never look at protein the same way again. Plant 5, tempeh. The fermented muscle builder that solves the one protein problem no cut of meat can solve for seniors. 31 grams of protein per cup, more than a 5-ounce beef serving. That alone makes tempeh remarkable. But the number that matters most for seniors isn't the protein content, it's the absorption rate. Here is a truth that mainstream nutrition advice rarely addresses directly. A 65-year-old eating 30 grams of protein from a steak may absorb only 40 to 50% of it, because reduced stomach acid, slowed enzyme production, and decreased gut motility all reduce protein extraction efficiency with age. That same 30 grams from tempeh is absorbed at 70 to 80% efficiency, because tempeh is fermented. The fermentation process that creates tempeh breaks down phytic acid, the compound in plants that binds to minerals and blocks their absorption, increasing overall mineral bioavailability by up to 60%. The fermentation also creates probiotics that directly improve gut microbiome diversity, and gut health, modern gastroenterology now confirms, governs how much protein a senior body can actually extract from any food, plant or animal. Tempeh was developed by Buddhist monks in Indonesia approximately 1,500 years ago. These were people who abstained entirely from meat and needed to sustain physical vitality, mental clarity, and muscle function through every season of their lives. They did not stumble onto tempeh by accident. They refined it deliberately, over generations, into one of the most complete protein delivery systems ever created. Slice it thin, marinate it for 20 minutes in soy sauce, garlic, and a touch of ginger. Pan fry for 3 minutes each side until the edges are golden. The texture is firm, satisfying, and genuinely meaty in a way that surprises people the first time they try it. The monks discovered 1,500 years ago what nutritional science is only now proving. Fermented protein is senior protein. Would you be willing to try tempeh this week? Drop a yes or no in the comments. And don't go anywhere, because plant number 6 is one most people literally throw in the bin every autumn, and it contains the one mineral that could be silently blocking all your muscle growth right now. Plant 6, pumpkin seeds. The seed we throw away that contains the mineral your aging muscles are silently starving for. 9 grams of protein per ounce, 30% protein by weight, more zinc per serving than most cuts of beef. And zinc is where this story becomes urgent. Zinc is not optional for muscle protein synthesis. It is biologically required, a necessary cofactor in the enzymatic processes that build new muscle tissue and support testosterone production, which plays a direct role in muscle maintenance after 60. Studies show that approximately 40% of adults over 60 are zinc deficient. 40%. And zinc deficiency alone, independent of protein intake, can reduce muscle synthesis by up to 30%. This means that millions of seniors are eating adequate protein, following reasonable nutrition advice, doing everything they've been told, and still losing muscle. Because they're deficient in the mineral their muscles need to use the protein they're eating. The protein arrives. The construction crew isn't there to receive it. Indigenous peoples across the Americas understood the value of pumpkin seeds for over 4,000 years as food, as medicine, as a source of sustained strength. They roasted them, ground them into pastes, and used them in traditional remedies. They kept the seeds. We carve the pumpkin and throw the seeds away. We discard the most muscle-critical part of the entire plant. 1 ounce daily, lightly toasted with sea salt, added to salads, stirred into soups, or simply eaten by the handful as an afternoon snack. The zinc, magnesium, and iron in that single ounce form the mineral foundation that your muscles need to actually build from the protein you consume. We throw away the most muscle-critical seed in the plant kingdom, and then wonder why our muscles won't respond. If you've made it this far, you already know more about senior muscle nutrition than most people will ever learn. Don't stop now, because plant number 7 is unlike anything else on this list. It doesn't just feed your muscles, it removes the biological limit on what your muscles are allowed to become. After 60, stay with me. Plant 7, moringa. The miracle tree that contains more complete protein than chicken, and the only food on earth that removes the biological ceiling on senior muscle growth. Every plant on this list feeds your muscles. This one removes the limit on what your muscles are allowed to become. Dried moringa leaves contain approximately 27 grams of protein per 100 grams, comparable to chicken breast. All 9 essential amino acids, more calcium than milk, more potassium than bananas, more vitamin C than oranges. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations lists moringa as one of the most nutrient-dense plants ever formally studied. Traditional communities across Africa, South Asia, and Central America have relied on moringa for centuries, not as a supplement, not as a trend, but as a primary food source in regions where survival depended on getting maximum nutrition from minimum resources. They called it the miracle tree. They called it the tree that never stops giving, and they were right, on every count. But here is the finding that places moringa at the very top of this list. Research has identified that moringa contains compounds called isothiocyanates that directly suppress myostatin. Myostatin is a protein produced naturally in the body whose specific biological function is to limit muscle growth. It exists as a regulatory mechanism, a brake, that prevents muscle from growing beyond what the body considers necessary. After 60, myostatin activity increases. The biological brake gets tighter. Your muscles don't just face reduced protein synthesis and increased breakdown. They face an active suppression signal telling them not to grow, regardless of how hard you work or how much protein you eat. Moringa pushes back against that signal at the molecular level. No other food on this list does that. No cut of meat does that. No protein powder does that. Moringa is the only common food source with published research showing direct myostatin suppression activity, meaning it doesn't just supply the building materials. It removes the biological restriction on how much your muscles can build with those materials. 1 teaspoon of moringa powder in warm water or a morning smoothie every day. Available in health stores and online. The taste is mild, slightly peppery. It takes 30 seconds to prepare. Every other food on this list feeds your muscles, but moringa removes the biological ceiling on what your muscles are allowed to become after 60. Let's bring this home. Lentils, 18 grams of protein per cup, digested 40% more efficiently than red meat in aging bodies. The food that built empires is the food that rebuilds you. Edamame, 18.5 grams of complete protein with the leucine content that aging muscle tissue specifically needs to trigger synthesis. 2,000 years of the world's longest-lived populations never stopped eating it. Hemp seeds, 10 grams of complete protein with an anti-inflammatory fatty acid profile that protects muscle tissue while it builds it. Warrior fuel for 10,000 years. Spirulina, 60 to 70% protein by dry weight, with phycocyanin that blocks muscle breakdown at the cellular level. NASA's choice for the most demanding nutritional environment humans have ever faced. Tempeh, 31 grams of protein per cup, absorbed at 70 to 80% efficiency in aging digestive systems, because fermentation does the work your stomach acid used to do. Pumpkin seeds, 9 grams of protein per ounce with more zinc than beef. solving the hidden mineral deficiency that's silently blocking muscle synthesis in 40% of adults over 60. And moringa, 27 grams of complete protein per 100 grams of dried leaves, with documented myostatin suppression activity that removes the biological limit on senior muscle growth. Here is the truth the mainstream protein conversation has missed for decades. We have been asking the wrong question. We keep asking how much protein. The real question, the one that matters specifically for bodies over 60, is which protein, and whether your aging system can actually absorb it, process it, and convert it into the muscle you need to stay strong, independent, and fully alive in the years ahead. These 7 plants answer that question better than anything in the meat aisle. If this video changed the way you think about protein after 60, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of these 7 are you adding to your plate this week? I read every single comment and I genuinely want to know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Every week we bring you the nutritional science that your doctor doesn't always have time to explain, translated into practical knowledge you can use today. Your muscles don't know how old you are, they only know whether they're being fed. Start feeding them right.